Ling Quan never expected that when he met Xiao Yan again, he would be defeated without even seeing the other parties move. In just a few years, Xiao Yan, who was once regarded as an ant-like youth, now stands above him. Xiao Yan quickly pushed open the door and stepped into the courtyard, where he saw a woman in a pure white dress standing quietly in front of the house. Staring at the woman bathed in sunlight, he couldn't help but be stunned. The little fairy doctor in front of him, with her snow-white hair restored to its original color, looked exactly the same as when Xiao Yan first met her in the Qingshan town of the Jiama Empire. Now she is the real little fairy doctor, the one who would save lives and injuries in Qingshan town and was regarded as a fairy in the hearts of many mercenaries. Do you not recognize me? The little fairy doctor walked lightly towards Xiao Yan, and seeing his stunned look, she couldn't help but laugh softly. Your hair, Xiao Yan murmured, and his gaze suddenly fixed on the little fairy doctor's delicate forehead, where there was a complex light gray mark, like a mysterious rune. This is the place occupied by the disaster poison body, and all the disaster poison in my body has turned into runes. That old senior is indeed a brilliant person, who can really create a way to completely refine the disaster poison body. The little fairy doctor gently stroked the runes on her forehead and said with a smile. Xiao Yan nodded and then said with a wry smile, It seems that your strength now is even stronger than the Dozun of fire. It should be the 7th Dozun. Xiao Yan couldn't help sighing when he heard the words, which means that the little fairy doctor's strength has at least jumped 3 stars. Why are the people he knows not a few slightly normal, and in less than a year, almost all of them have greatly increased their strength and reached a powerful realm? The little fairy doctor said, Since you are back, we should also set out. The day after she returned to the Falling Star Pavilion, Xiao Yan and his companions simply sorted out, and a group of 4 people quietly set out. The Gu clan, a mysterious and powerful race, has been passed down from ancient times, and they have enviable talents, which can make ordinary people regard them as strong with a small amount of cultivation. Because of these, the Gu clan is full of mystery in the eyes of many people in the Eastern Domain. Because the Falling Star Pavilion is far away from the Eastern Domain, even if Xiao Yan and his companions are so fast, plus some space wormholes, it will take nearly half a month to reach the Eastern Domain. For this situation, Xiao Yan and others can only keep going. This is a vast and endless grassland. In a corner of this grassland, a magnificent stone square stands majestically. The space above the square appears distorted, with silver light flashing from time to time, and then figures shuttle out from it, landing lightly on the square. The space in the air distorts violently again, and then several figures fly out from it and land steadily on the stone platform. They look around, and their faces all show a surprised expression. This should be the ancient stone square marked on the map. It seems we have not taken the wrong road. The little fairy doctor looked at this majestic stone platform and said with a smile, The Gu clan is worthy of being invited. All are real strong people. This call is really terrible. The Dozun of fire next to him also nodded slowly and praised. Xiao Yan smiled, turned his gaze to the east, and he could vaguely see the outline of a huge city at the end of his sight. That should be our destination, the ancient holy city, right? Let's go. Although the grassland is vast, it is not a problem for Xiao Yan and others. In less than 10 minutes, the huge city appeared clearly in the sight of Xiao Yan and others. As the distance approached, the crowd found that this ancient city was wrapped in a slightly transparent light cover, which was thin but made people feel the pressure in the soul, which made many people's faces change. This ancient holy city is a relic of ancient times, said to be built by the strong Do Di of the Gu clan. The light cover contains the power of Do Di. With this light cover to protect, the ancient holy city is invincible. The Dozun of fire explained in a low voice. It seems that he knows a lot about this city. At the gate of the ancient holy city, Xiao Yan and his companions gradually slowed down their steps. After all, the ancient holy city is not a place that can be entered casually, unless there is an invitation from the Gu clan. Otherwise, ordinary people are not allowed to enter. Soon, they finally arrived under the city gate. His eyes suddenly condensed, and he saw nearly 100 black-armored soldiers standing on both sides of the city gate, their sharp and cold eyes constantly scanning around. Xiao Yan's gaze moved away from these soldiers, suddenly fixed on a familiar figure at the city gate, and his eyes narrowed slightly. It's Ling Quan. When Xiao Yan noticed Ling Quan, the other party's cold gaze also turned over. Ling Quan asked, "Who allowed you to come here?" In the face of Ling Quan's cold drink, Xiao Yan's face was still calm, gently flicked, and a jade post flew out from the storage ring, carrying a sharp wind like lightning, shooting towards Ling Quan. Seeing this, Ling Quan sneered contemptuously, suddenly reached out and grabbed it, only to find a terrifying high temperature suddenly spreading from the inside of the jade post, instantly burning his palm and emitting a rich white fog. Severe pain came from the palm, making Ling Quan's expression even more gloomy. But he endured it hard, patted the jade post, and absorbed the information contained in it into his mind. Ling Quan asked doubtfully, "It turned out to be the Falling Star Pavilion. How could such a strength of the force receive an invitation from my Gu clan? There is a clear white paper black word on it. If you can't understand it, go and ask your Gu clan people. Give me back the jade post," Xiao Yan said indifferently. Xiao Yan's tone directly made Ling Quan itchy, holding one end of the jade post with a tight palm, and responded coldly, "If you want it, come and get it." As soon as the words fell, Ling Quan felt a blur in front of his eyes, and the jade post that was originally held tightly in his hand suddenly flew away. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the jade post had fallen into Xiao Yan's hand. This sudden change made Ling Quan's face blush instantly, and he forgot his identity in his anger. A fierce roar and a fierce palm wind struck Xiao Yan. But just as it was about to hit the latter, the line of sight blurred again, and a leg shadow as fast as lightning hit its chest heavily, and the strong force shook him to fly out and hit the city wall. Ling Quan directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was full of disbelief and shock. Before, although his strength was not as good as Xiao Yan, he could at least play a few tricks, but now he has been defeated without even seeing how Xiao Yan made a move. This drastic change made him feel suffocated. In the past, in the inner court of Jianan Academy, he was just an ant-like youth, but now he has stood above him. Ling Quan leader, I'm sorry, but next time please don't do such a foolish thing. After all, there are not many people like me who are merciful. Xiao Yan lightly flicked the jade post in his hand into the storage ring, and smiled at Ling Quan, who was full of horror. Catch him for me. Suner's courage is not small, and he personally admitted the relationship with Xiao Yan at the elders' meeting, and the consequence is that all the talents of the Gu clan have regarded him as a rival in love, and everywhere they want to compete with Xiao Yan. Seeing many black annihilation soldiers pointing their spears at Xiao Yan, the faces of the little fairy doctor and others also changed slightly, and their figures flashed and immediately appeared beside Xiao Yan. Suddenly, a roar of anger burst from the top of the city wall, and then a figure flew down like lightning. Ling Quan, what are you doing? Seeing the figure that flew down from the city wall, Ling Quan's face changed slightly, and he replied, "It's okay." "Okay." The figure frowned, and his gaze swept towards Xiao Yan and the others. "I pay homage to the fifth commander." The black soldiers around him saw this man and shouted respectfully. One of them quickly summarized the previous event. The fifth commander said, "You are Xiao Yan?" "Xiao Yan from the Falling Star Pavilion." Xiao Yan's face was calm, and he bowed to the man in front of him who was called the fifth commander. "It is Xiao Yan mentioned by Miss Suner." Ling Quan sneered coldly, and his eyes revealed jealousy and dissatisfaction, saying, "Now do you still want to let him enter the city?" Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyebrows frowned slightly, realizing that his reputation in the Gu clan was widely known, and this was probably mostly related to Suner. The fifth commander was silent for a moment, looked at Xiao Yan with a complex look, and then turned to Ling Quan and scolded sternly. "What is in your mind? He holds the jade post, is a distinguished guest invited by the Gu clan banquet, and you do this. Do you want to let people laugh at the Gu clan's impoliteness? Xiao Yan, please stay in the ancient holy city for a few days, and then someone will guide you to the realm of the Gu clan." Xiao Yan nodded slightly, feeling that although the fifth commander also had some hostility towards him, he was public and private, far better than Ling Quan. However, what puzzled Xiao Yan was the source of the fifth commander's hostility. Could it be also because of Suner? Subsequently, Xiao Yan led the little fairy doctor and others into the city, and just as he passed by the fifth commander, he hesitated and said softly, "If it is not presumptuous, I hope to find a time to compete with Xiao Yan. I really want to know if you are worthy of the young lady." Although this last sentence was spoken softly, it was clearly heard by Xiao Yan, who sighed and nodded slowly. Today's ancient holy city is quite lively, and there are often some people on the streets. Although not as crowded as other cities, the pedestrians here are mostly strong people. Let's go to the rest place set up by the Gu clan in the city first. I have heard that the space gate to the realm of the Gu clan will open in 3 days, and during this period, we can only stay in the ancient holy city. The little fairy doctor said to Xiao Yan and others with a smile. The ancient holy city is a mixed crowd, and we must be extra careful these days. Xiao Yan's gaze swept around and reminded in a low voice, and then he took the lead towards the city center. A few minutes later, a group of people arrived at the city center, where a vast manor stood. With the jade post of the Gu clan, they entered the manor smoothly. Because of the continuous long journey, everyone was already tired, and after a brief conversation, they each went to find a quiet room to rest. The next day, when the warm sunlight poured into the room, Xiao Yan, who was sitting cross-legged in cultivation, also felt it slowly and opened his eyes. Subsequently, he found the little fairy doctor and others and left the room together. At this time, many strong people from all over the place had gathered in the manor. After strolling around the manor, Xiao Yan and his group stopped in front of a spacious tavern building. There was a huge stone platform in the center of the tavern, with the surging dou qi, and the fierce battle attracted bursts of cheers from the surrounding audience. "Have you heard about the news of the Black Annihilation Army?" Xiao Yan glanced at the battle on the platform and asked softly. The little fairy doctor nodded with a smile and said, "The Black Annihilation Army has a high status in the Gu clan, because the selection conditions are very strict, not only requiring absolute loyalty, but also reaching a certain level within a specific age. It is said that the Black Annihilation Army will have an assessment every year, and those who do not meet the standard will be eliminated. So this also makes the quality of the Black Annihilation Army quite high." The Dozun of Fire on the side added with a smile, "There is a strict rank division within the Black Annihilation Army, and there are 8 commanders inside. The Ling Quan and the 5th commander we saw yesterday are 2 of them. But Ling Quan is only ranked 7th. Just ranked 7th? Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. Ling Quan is a 1-star Dozun, and the 5th commander is a 3-star Dozun. So it seems that the commander of the Black Annihilation Army is at least a 6-star or even higher level. It is worthy of the Gu clan. Now you are not popular in the eyes of these young talents of the Gu clan, and even many people regard you as a rival in love. I think you should be troubled." The little fairy doctor covered her mouth and chuckled. "The relationship between me and Sooner should not be known by many people in the Gu clan. But the news I got is that now this matter is almost known to everyone, because Sooner personally admitted your relationship at the elders' meeting." Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, "Sooner's courage is not small. But since it has been said, and it will be faced sooner or later. From the beginning, I knew that I would not be too peaceful in this realm." The little fairy doctor continued, "Among these 8 commanders, most regard you as a rival in love. If you meet them, they will definitely find an excuse to compete with you. But I think the real threat is not them, but the 4 commanders." Xiao Yan asked in doubt, "The 4 commanders?" The real high level of the Black Annihilation Army is said to be 8 commanders, 4 commanders, and 2 leaders of the Black Annihilation King, the little fairy doctor explained. These 4 commanders are also the top talents in the Gu clan, and their Do Di blood is not as good as Sooner, but they are also rare in the clan. Although I am not sure what attitude these 4 commanders hold towards you, Sooner is the favored daughter of the Gu clan, and their attraction to such talents is incomparable. So you still have to be more careful." Xiao Yan's gaze narrowed slightly, and a touch of fierceness flashed in his eyes. No matter how strong these so-called commanders are, no one can stop him between Sooner. Just as Xiao Yan and the others were talking, 2 cold gazes on the tavern upstairs tightly locked on Xiao Yan. "Is he Xiao Yan?" A young man in a green robe with a handsome face said lightly. "Third brother, he is the Xiao Yan mentioned by the young lady. Now in the Central Plains, his reputation is not small. Now coming to our Gu clan, that arrogance is not reduced at all. The voice next to him sneered in response, which was Ling Quan, who was kicked by Xiao Yan yesterday. This is not the Central Plains. The young man in green smiled slightly, with a touch of coldness in his smile. Although the young lady may not look down on us, at least this kind of person should not have such qualifications. Don't mess up, they are guests after all. Everything will be very regular. As soon as his voice fell, the competition between the two figures on the stone platform also came to a conclusion. Then a clear voice attracted everyone's attention. The next sparring, the third commander of the Black Annihilation Army, Yang Hao, against the champion of the pill competition, Xiao Yan. Not far away, Xiao Yan, who had just raised his teacup, suddenly stopped, and then his face gradually sank, as if he had been set up. The little fairy doctor and others were also stunned by this sudden change, and then they saw Xiao Yan's gloomy face, and immediately understood what had happened, and their eyebrows wrinkled, saying, "I didn't expect that the trouble would come to the door just after saying this, but this method is a bit too low." With their shrewdness, they naturally knew that the other party was afraid that Xiao Yan would back down, so they took the lead in such a public place, and then if Xiao Yan lost the match, it would immediately become an excuse for many people in the Gu clan to attack Xiao Yan, and even sooner would be implicated. Xiao Yan's face was gloomy, and he slowly took a breath. Since he is willing to come to die, then I will help him. Yang Hao's figure flashed and appeared on the stone platform in an instant, with a smiling gaze towards the direction of Xiao Yan, smiling and saying, "Mr. Xiao Yan, I have long heard of your name. I don't know if you can teach me today?" In the attic, all eyes were suddenly transferred to the thin figure at this moment. He is the Xiao Yan who won the championship of the pill competition? I didn't expect to be so young. And he has reached the level of an 8th-grade alchemy master, which is unbelievable. It is said that his teacher was the pill dust of that year, but now the pill dust has been promoted to a half-do sheng, and his strength is terrifying. Yang Hao laughed and said, "I will personally try today. What is so great about the champion of the pill competition?" The do chi surged, Yang Hao laughed, his slender palm suddenly gripped, and the sharp wind formed in the palm, and his foot stomped on the ground, and his figure appeared in front of Xiao Yan like lightning. Xiao Yan took a slight step back, stepped on the mysterious steps between 3 steps, and avoided it all. Every time the two fought, Yang Hao's face would be filled with solemnity. After more than a dozen rounds of fierce exchanges, his face was completely replaced by solemnity. Although he had already displayed 2 intermediate-level Earth-class fighting skills, he had not caused any harm to Xiao Yan, and the latter's calm appearance made his face a little embarrassed. Yang Hao's palm was also lightning fast, forming a series of seals that Xiao Yan was very familiar with, Imperial Seal Mantra. Seeing this, Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed slightly, his figure flashed, and he flicked his finger, and a gust of wind shot out and hit Yang Hao's wrist. Although this gust of wind was not strong, it just broke Yang Hao's complete seal, causing his internal qi to surge. Seeing Xiao Yan like this, the ferocity on Yang Hao's face became even more intense. His handprint suddenly paused, and a cold color appeared in his eyes. However, just as he was about to launch the palm print at Xiao Yan, a chill enveloped his heart. The moment the chill enveloped, the stone platform under Yang Hao's feet suddenly burst open, and a fiery magma column, like a fiery dragon with claws and teeth, rushed out violently and slammed heavily between Yang Hao's legs. The attack from the earth was unexpected by everyone, and as the protagonist, Yang Hao spat out a mouthful of blood, and his figure was directly hit by the fierce impact of the fire column and flew up, slamming heavily on a huge stone pillar of the attic, and the stone pillar also exploded in an instant. Looking at the battle that ended almost instantly, the attic suddenly fell silent, and a look of astonishment looked at the thin young man standing in the field with his hands down, and even his figure had not moved. After a while, the thunderous applause resounded through the attic. Xiao Yan's face was calm, looking at the charred Yang Hao, and he made a slight bow with a smile, saying, "I have accepted your generosity, third commander." Yang Hao, covered in blood in the attic, stared at Xiao Yan, seemingly preparing to launch another fierce attack. Just then, a cold scolding sounded in the tavern. "Yang Hao, you have completely lost the face of the Gu clan." A figure slowly appeared in front of him, and the cold voice made Yang Hao show a trace of fear in his eyes. Ling Quan and the other two people on the attic were also stunned when they saw this figure, and then Ling Quan's eyes showed a surprise, and he flashed to the side of that figure. The figure glanced at them, then turned his gaze sharply to the thin figure on the stone platform and said in a deep voice, "Xiao Yan, are you happy to fight? It's just a sparring match." Xiao Yan glanced at the silver-armored man. Judging from the address of Ling Quan and others, this person should be the second commander of the Black Annihilation Army. From the breath, the strength should have reached the 6-star Do Zun. Upon hearing this, the silver-armored man's eyes condensed, and he flashed onto the stone platform and said lightly, "Since you like to spar, let me try it. If it's a relay battle, it seems that the number of people is not enough." Xiao Yan said with a smile, "Dealing with you doesn't need a relay battle. How about it, Xiao Yan? Dare to fight again?" Seeing the situation on the stone platform becoming tense again, the eyes of the people in the attic once again focused. At this moment, anyone could feel that there was some unknown rift between these young talents of the Gu clan and Xiao Yan. "Lin Xiu, you are making a fool of yourselves." Just as everyone felt that the battle was about to break out, an old angry voice suddenly sounded in the attic. Then a gray figure appeared on the stone platform like lightning, scolding Lin Xiu. Seeing the gray old man who suddenly appeared, Lin Xiu was slightly stunned, then respectfully saluted and said, "As the host, you are actually embarrassing the guests in public." Faced with the scolding of the ancient Sun, Lin Xiu did not dare to refute. He knew that with the appearance of this old man, today's face was probably not recoverable. He could only shake his head helplessly and walked out of the attic. Watching Lin Xiu leave, the ancient Sun also turned his head and said softly to Xiao Yan, "The people of the Xiao clan have finally come to our Gu clan again. Young people are impulsive, and because of the young lady, you may encounter a lot of trouble in the future. I hope you are prepared." Then the ancient Sun turned and left the stone platform. Seeing a battle that should have been wonderful but ended so hastily, many people were a bit unsatisfied, but they could only reluctantly take back their gaze and whispered about the fierce battle just now. Xiao Yan jumped down from the stone platform and was about to return to his seat when he suddenly felt the strange fire in his body surge violently. He quickly looked along this faint induction, and his gaze finally locked on the relatively quiet corner of the attic. There, a woman in a red dress with a veil on her face was quietly looking at him. On her forehead, a vivid flame mark was quietly blooming. Xiao Yan's gaze was focused on the flame mark, and his heart moved. Is she the person from the Yin clan? After a moment of eye contact, a burst of flames suddenly erupted in the space between the two, and then Xiao Yan's body trembled slightly, and a touch of gravity flashed across his face. The strange fire in that woman in red is probably not simple. What happened? The little fairy doctor and others quickly arrived at Xiao Yan's side. Xiao Yan shook his head, looked deeply at the woman in red, and said, "This woman is likely to be the person from the Yin clan mentioned by the old pill." Xiao Yan feels very unfamiliar with this group, but he knows that it is as famous as the Gu clan, the Soul clan, and other powerful races, and naturally understands that it should not be easily offended. "Let's go." The noise in the tavern attic was deafening, and Xiao Yan did not want to stay for a long time, so he turned and walked out. "Huaji, how is it?" Looking at the back of Xiao Yan and others leaving, the man in white robe asked with a smile. "Very strong, strange fire." The woman in red named Huaji said softly, "If there is an opportunity, I would like to compete with him to see which one is better between my Red Lotus Karma Flame, which is ranked 8th on the Strange Fire list, and his Strange Fire. You are only interested in these." The man in white shook his head helplessly, then stood up and walked outside the attic. The other several people followed. On the way back to the room, the little fairy doctor said with a frown, "It seems that the situation is more difficult than we heard. Among these 8 commanders, almost most of them are hostile to you. Today, if the ancient elder did not appear, Lin Xiu would probably also make a move against you. Trouble is inevitable. If everything goes smoothly in the Gu clan, I would feel a bit strange." Xiao Yan said with a smile, not taking those 8 commanders too seriously. The little fairy doctor continued with a slightly heavy expression. "What I really worry about is not these 8 commanders, but those 4 commanders. They are the best among the younger generation of the Gu clan. According to their potential, they are the most likely to become candidates for the Black Annihilation King. You must know that every Black Annihilation King is at least a half-dosheng level strong man. Half-dosheng? Forget it. If it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, you can't avoid it. Anyway, if trouble really comes, you can only face it. Some things are indeed inevitable. Xiao Yan shook his head and said. Just then, he seemed to sense something. His steps suddenly stopped. He looked up sharply, and his gaze was cast to the end of the path in the distance. There, 3 figures in black robes stood casually, and a sense of danger quietly spread. The man in black asked, "Are you Xiao Yan from the Xiao clan?" Xiao Yan said, "Who are you? From the Soul Hall?" "Hee. I thought you should remember us very well," the leader of the black-robed people said with a smile. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's expression slightly sank, and his gaze carefully scanned the 3 people. A sense of familiarity suddenly surged up, making his face instantly gloomy. The man in black said, "Instead of saying this name, I prefer to hear you call us the Soul Clan." Xiao Yan's face was cold, and the do qi within his body surged rapidly. He did not expect to actually meet someone from the Soul Hall here. "There's no need to be so nervous. The task of capturing you is not for me to carry out, so I don't want to get involved. I came here just to see what the Xiao clan, which once suppressed my Soul clan, has fallen to now," the man in black said with a smile. "If you have seen it, then leave," the little fairy doctor sneered coldly. Her delicate hand clenched tightly, and the vast do qi condensed into a long whip in her palm. She suddenly shook it and rushed straight towards the man in black. Seeing the little fairy doctor take action, the other 2 men in black let out a cold drink. With a wave of their sleeves, 2 pitch-black chains rushed out like venomous snakes, colliding fiercely with the do qi whip. "I am not here to fight with you, but just to give you a routine warning. Being an enemy of the Soul Clan will not end well." Regarding the exchange between the 2 parties, the leading figure in black just smiled slightly, with a grim smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. "Remember my name, Hunya. I was one of those who severely injured your ancestor Xiao Xian and led to his ultimate downfall. So, the one who will extinguish you this time may also be me. This is destiny, something you cannot escape." As the 3 figures in black disappeared, a faint laughter echoed from the space, eventually reverberating around. Xiao Yan looked at the place where the 3 had disappeared, his eyes flickering with a sharp light. "Hunya, is that so? Then you will repay the debts of your ancestors. Hunya, I will hold you accountable for what was done to my forefathers." Xiao Yan's gaze was cold as he quickly channeled his do qi, not expecting to encounter members of the Soul Hall here. "No need to be so tense. Capturing you is not my mission, so I have no desire to get involved. I am here merely to observe the state of the Xiao clan, which once held our Soul clan firmly beneath them." "Having seen it, then leave," the little fairy doctor sneered, her delicate hand clenched, the immense do qi in her palm condensing into a long whip, which she fiercely lashed towards the figures in black. As the little fairy doctor made her move, the other 2 figures in black let out a cold exclamation, flicking their sleeves, sending out 2 pitch-black chains that collided fiercely with the do qi whip. The figure in black said, "I did not come to engage in combat with you, but merely to issue a customary warning. To be an enemy of the Soul Clan is to court misfortune." The leader of the black-robed figures merely smiled, a sinister grin playing on his lips. "Remember my name, Hunya. I was one of those who severely wounded your ancestor, Xiao Xian, and led to his eventual demise. So, it might be me who extinguishes you this time. This is fate, an inescapable destiny." With the departure of the 3 black-robed figures, a faint laughter echoed through the space, reverberating around them. Xiao Yan gazed at the spot where they had vanished, his eyes gleaming with determination. "Hunya, I shall hold you accountable for the debts of your ancestors." The translation continues the narrative with a focus on maintaining the original context and the dramatic tone of the scene, ensuring the English version resonates authentically with native speakers while preserving the significance of names and special items.